Welcome back to Factual America, the channel where we dig deep beneath the headlines, separate the facts from the fiction, and spark tough conversations that challenge the mainstream narrative. Today we're tackling a topic that goes right to the heart of who we are as a society. Why is there a growing movement to erase, rewrite, or distort our history? And more importantly, who really benefits when we forget where we came from? If you've been paying attention to schools, the media, or even corporate boardrooms, you've probably noticed something unsettling. Historical monuments are being taken down. Curriculum is changing overnight. The facts you learned growing up are suddenly controversial. This isn't just about updating names or switching out old textbooks. There's a much bigger game at play. History isn't just a collection of dusty dates and names. It's how we make sense of our present and chart the course for our future. The more we understand about where we came from, the better prepared we are to defend our freedoms and our culture. But what happens when certain powerful groups want you to forget, or worse, reshape our shared history? Let's unpack who stands to gain when Americans let go of their past. Let's start with the basics. Why does history matter so much? Every nation needs a shared story, a set of triumphs, trials, even missteps that serve as a glue keeping people together. When you undermine that story, you weaken the sense of identity that bonds generations. Without a common past, you can't have a united future. That's not just academic. There are real consequences for forgetting or misrepresenting history. Now, you might hear that erasing history is just hyperbole. Critics will say we're just getting rid of offensive symbols, or we're making history more inclusive. But is that really what's happening? Or is this the first stage in a deliberate campaign to weaken our national identity and make us easier to control? When textbooks get rewritten overnight or monuments are ripped down in the dark of night, it's not about progress, it's about power. Take a look at every tyrannical regime throughout history, from Mao's China to Stalin's Soviet Union, from Pol Pot's Cambodia to the radical Year Zero in the French Revolution. The very first thing these regimes did was target the nation's shared memories, its heroes, its traditions, its lessons learned the hard way. Why? Because if you can convince people that their past was evil, they'll gladly hand over their freedoms today for the promise of a better tomorrow. But that better tomorrow rarely comes. The only people who benefit from historical amnesia are those at the top who seek to rewrite the rules to serve themselves. Let's dig deeper into the mechanics of how history is being erased today. It starts subtly. Curriculum changes, trigger warnings, selective facts, and omission of context. Suddenly, founding fathers aren't complex people with virtues and flaws. They're irredeemably problematic. The American Revolution? Just an act of aggression. The Civil War? Reduced to simplistic narratives with no room for growth or reconciliation? History isn't simple, and it isn't supposed to be. America is a tapestry of setbacks and victories, moral failures and enormous achievements. To know the whole story is to understand just how far we've come and why we have to keep defending liberty. But when you teach only the failures or outright fabricate grievances, you poison the minds of the next generation against its own inheritance. Why would anyone want that? To answer that, you have to follow the money and the ideology. There are powerful interests that see a population divided and ashamed of its roots as much easier to manipulate. Hollywood, major news corporations, and university bureaucracies benefit from campaigns that keep Americans arguing over their past instead of working together to solve the problems of today. Think about it. If you feel disconnected from your heritage, your sense of self comes instead from what's trending or from a new ideology imposed by self-appointed cultural elites. You become more likely to accept sweeping reforms, more taxes, more censorship, and less autonomy. Your foundational freedoms are suddenly negotiable, sacrificed in the name of progress. Let's get specific. Have you noticed how many school districts now use textbooks or programs sourced not from local teachers or historical societies, but from giant publishing companies with deep political interests? The content isn't just fact-checked, it's sanitized and recontextualized to fit the narrative of the day. And just look at our university campuses. Departments once focused on rigorous historical analysis are now the staging grounds for ideological activism. Instead of questioning history, students are taught to condemn it outright. Critical thinking is replaced by critical theory, with little room for dissent. This isn't just happening on the left. There are some on the right who are quick to ignore or gloss over uncomfortable chapters of American history too. But here's the crucial difference. Conservatives believe in learning from the past, warts and all, to build something better. The impulse to erase or whitewash comes from those who want to start from scratch, untethered to tradition. The problem? That's never how a healthy society works. Even global movements are in on the game. Just look at the United Nations' efforts to create a world curriculum that downplays national sovereignty and minimizes patriotic education. The drive is clear. Decouple people from their unique stories and create a global citizenry more loyal to global technocrats than to family or country. It's important to recognize that this isn't just a US phenomenon. Across the West, national histories are being scrubbed of context and heroism. In the United Kingdom, the story of Churchill is increasingly caricatured into villainy. In France, the triumphs of liberation have been replaced with a narrative of perpetual shame. But let's ask the big question. What do ordinary people like you and me, lose when we buy into these top-down attempts to erase or reinterpret history? The answer is simple. You lose your sense of why your family sacrificed, why your rights even exist, why you should cherish the opportunities around you. Once history is severed from daily life, our sense of purpose goes with it. Patriotism is mocked, sacrifice is forgotten. The strength that held previous generations together is replaced by cynicism, division, and endless outrage. That is exactly the environment in which would-be rulers thrive, because a divided, demoralized populace demands a savior. But it doesn't have to be this way. In fact, America's greatest strength has always been its willingness to confront hard truths, debate fiercely, and still hold the Union together. Rather than deleting our history, we should be engaging with it, unapologetically, honestly, and with an open mind. Complexity isn't something to be afraid of. It's something to be proud of. There are countless examples in American history of turning pain into progress. Look at how a nation divided by civil war came back stronger. Look at how each new wave of immigrants has brought new energy and new American stories to our national tapestry. None of that happens if we pretend the past didn't exist or if we let it be defined only by our lowest moments. So who really benefits from historical amnesia? The answer is clear. Elites who prefer a nation of subjects rather than citizens. Politicians, bureaucrats, and globalists who want everyone looking to them for identity, guidance, and meaning. Gatekeepers who profit from outrage, confusion, and division. And of course, multinational corporations selling unity slogans while outsourcing jobs and peddling division. Meanwhile, students are too distracted by the latest social justice trend to see what's really at stake. They're told that progress demands tearing it all down, never mind who's picking up the pieces. But let's bring it back home. What can ordinary Americans do about it? First, you can insist on teaching your children and yourself the full picture. Read original sources, visit museums, talk to elders who lived through historic times. The more you know, the harder it is for anyone to sell you a sanitized version of America. Secondly, get involved in your local school boards and curriculum discussions. Don't let distant decision makers or faceless textbook companies control what your kids learn about their country. Push for balanced, rigorous, and fact-based history education, warts and all. Most importantly, don't shy away from uncomfortable conversations about history. The only way to build a better future is by learning from the past as it happened, not as today's gatekeepers wish it had happened. Let complexity be your guide. Answer tough questions with even tougher research. If we let history be erased, the story won't stop there. It won't end with statues or textbooks. It will seep into every law, every norm, every expectation about what it means to be American. And once it's gone, getting it back, getting people to remember why this country matters, will be harder than you think. So let's make a pledge, not just to resist manufactured amnesia, but to treasure our national story. It's time to celebrate not just the easy parts of American history, but the messy, complicated saga that made us who we are today. Only then can we truly pass on the torch of liberty to the next generation. If you made it this far, I want to hear from you. Do you think history is being erased on purpose? Or is this all just a natural evolution of society? Who do you think benefits when we forget our shared past? Drop your answers in the comments below and let's keep the conversation going. And don't forget, what other history topics do you want to see covered right here on Factual America? Subscribe for more. Share if you found this insightful, and let's keep fighting for the truth together.